Come on in. Come in and bring all of who you are. Rest and quiet your weak-worn spirit, for you are here to touch again the eternal springs of hope and renewal. Come to recharge those batteries that are running on empty. Set aside your cares for a moment. Although you may be at home, know that you are not alone. There is strength and caring comfort and support for you here. You can make of it what you will. Enter into this time of worship. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Hank Peirce. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I am the minister of this, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading. Thank you for inviting us into your home. And I am so pleased to be with all of you today. Hey, before I hand our service off to Kelly Tome, who is our worship associate, I want to tell you about worship in the next couple of weeks. The first is that next week, our pastoral care team will be leading a really wonderful service. So I know you won't want to miss that. And then we have something special in 2 weeks. I and a number of other ministers, UU ministers here in Eastern Massachusetts, have entered into a conspiracy. So we are all sharing some virtual pulpit exchanges. So in 2 weeks, you will get a link, and we are going to all join and watch a worship service led by Reverend Kate Wilkerson. Kate is the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Provincetown. And then later on this summer, I'll be doing a service that will go out to a number of other churches in the area. Kind of a fun idea. It's a fun way for us to travel and hear some other ministers from the comfort of your home. But now let me hand the next portion of our service over to Kelly.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Tome, and my pronouns are she, her. I am so glad to welcome you to our virtual Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading. Right now, it looks a lot like my house, but really it is all our houses and our hearts until we can worship together in person again. In these momentous times, when the simple pleasures of summertime are side by side with the reality of the world we live in, when we can feel change in our very bones, our mission statement has never been more relevant. We are a welcoming place to nurture and explore individual spirituality, to build a committed and loving community, and to heal the world. You are welcome in this community, no matter your age, race, previous religious experiences, differing abilities, political affiliations, sexual orientation, or gender identity. It doesn't matter where you live or have lived, who you live with, or how your family came to be. Are you worshiping with us in your PJs? That's okay. With coffee in your kitchen, or weather permitting outside somewhere? Yes, you are welcome here. Newcomer or long-timer, you are welcome here today, and all of us, Reverend Hank, Roald, Al, and I, are so glad you've chosen to spend this time together here. If you are watching this service on its initial broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern on July 19th, please join us after the service for virtual fellowship and real conversation at our Zoom fellowship hour. The Zoom link can be found in the weekly church update email. If you are not receiving our church emails and wish to be, please see our website at uureading.org to find contact info for our membership coordinator, Melissa Martin, and she will get you connected quickly. Now, I invite you to take a deep breath, to get comfortable, and to enter into our time of worship.
My friends, will you join me as we light our chalice by repeating the words we say each week? In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek. And now, Rold is going to lead us in our first hymn. It's number 66 in their gray hymnal, When the Summer Sun is Shining.
When the summer sun is shining over golden land and sea, and the flowers in the hedgerow welcome butterfly and bee, then my open heart is glowing, full of warmth for everyone, and I feel an inner beauty which reflects the summer sun. When the summer clouds of thunder bring the long-awaited rain, and the thirsty soil is moistened and the grass is green again, then I long for summer sunshine, but I know that clouds and tears are a part of life's refreshment, like the rainbow's hopes and fears. In the cool of summer evening, when the dancing insects play, and in garden, street, and meadow linger echoes of the day, then my heart is full of yearning, hopes and memories flood the whole of my being, reaching inwards to the corners of my soul.
Friends, will you open your hearts in prayer? Gracious and loving Spirit, as we take this time to be still, help us to let go of anxiousness and feel your peace. Some describe you as being love itself, and where there is love, there can be no fear. So help us to let go of fear, receive your perfect love. Some of us come before you with heaviness because of being hurt by others. Help us to accept the effect that their actions have had in our lives, and then to let go of this hurt. Holding on to past hurts, holding on to resentments and judgments weigh us down. Aid us to release this hurt. Help us to receive and accept love. Help us to freely give love. Help us to not strive for perfection, but to make progress each day. To accept the choices that we make. Each day, help us to step into the glorious person you have created us to be. Help us to accept and find comfort in knowing that we are completely loved. We have a few announcements. The first is that last Sunday afternoon, I went down to Brockton and led a renewal of vows for my friend Glenn Rice and his wife, Alyssa Dennis, who went to youth group here many, many years ago. And as we celebrate that, we also acknowledge the pain of some deaths in our larger community. Know that Janet Bergolia has lost her husband, Matt, that she is in grief. We hold also Charlene Reynolds Santos in our prayers as she grieves for the death of her mother, Joyce Reynolds. May their memories be a balm to all those who mourn. O wondrous giver of all things, your world is full of riches. We thank you for the splendor of nature and your bountiful provision for our human needs. May we not waste your gifts nor ignore the welfare of others in our use of them. We would recognize the right of every human being to share in what you have given. We would help to make our planet a true home to all of your children, where each may have an equal opportunity both for work and for the rewards of work. This we ask in the name of all that is gracious and glorious and good. Amen and blessed be.
On August 25th, 1619, the ship the White Lion arrived at Port Comfort, now known as Fort Monroe National Monument in Hampton, Virginia. The ship contained enslaved Africans. This is the first recorded arrival of Africans in America. This year, the anniversary was commemorated at Fort Monroe as a day of healing and reconciliation. The community was asked to ring bells at 3 o'clock for 4 minutes, signifying the 400 years that have passed since that historic moment. How do we mark that first day, that hour, that minute the White Lion docked at a point that would be of no comfort to the 20 enslaved Africans chained in her bowels, heralds of a coming storm of millions whose bodies would break through soil and rock to build an America that could never fully embrace its progenitors? How do we mark that day, that hour, that minute that foreshadowed the centuries of degradation, violence, of attempts to separate the soul and spirit from the deep well of Black lives? How do we mark that day, that hour, that minute, 400 years ago, when the first drop of African sweat commingled with the earth's warmth, planting the seeds of a new culture, a new way of life, a new heartbeat into the fabric of a new world. When the roots of freedom sparked deep underground and spread from generation to generation, blossoming into resistance and resilience. So today, we will ring bells of sorrow, bells of grief, bells of atonement. We will ring out the ghosts of those lost in the middle passages, lost to the whips and deprivations, lost to the lynches and the bullets, lost to the prisons and the chains of racism. Today we will ring bells so that tomorrow we may ring in freedom, ring in liberation, ring in peace.
I'm going to tell you a few stories today, part of our service. Story number one. I've just returned from a week's vacation in New Hampshire. It was well needed. We didn't do anything outrageous. We didn't go to any big events. There were no big events to happen. We didn't go to any shows. There were no shows to be seen. It was just a time to do little things, to catch your breath this spring. And one of the things I did do was to finish Sarah Vowell's book, The Wordy Shipmates. Now, if you listen to public radio, you will have no doubt heard Sarah Vowell. She has sort of a deadpan little girl voice, and she loves American history. In this book of hers, The Wordy Shipmates, which she published about 12 years ago, it tells the story of Governor John Winthrop, the Puritan, the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. A man whose sermon on charity includes a line that has been repeated by politicians throughout the ages. The line is, "We shall be seen as a city on a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." He gave that sermon in 1630 while at sea, before he had ever even set foot in North America. He was giving this sermon to his shipmates. It was a call for unity in the face of the unknown. He writes, "We must be knit together in this work of ours. We must entertain each other in affection. We must be willing to abridge ourselves of our superfluities for the supply of others' necessities. We must uphold a familiar commerce together in all meekness, gentleness, patience, and liberality. We must delight in each other, make each other's conditions our own, rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together. Or we must consider that we shall be a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." Of course, when he arrives in Boston, the calls for unities tend to fall away, to be replaced by calls of conformity. That is, having others conform to his point of view. Much of Sarah Vowell's book is a tale of Winthrop's conflicts with two groups. The first are religious outcasts, heretics. People like Anne Hutchinson, that brilliant and outspoken Puritan woman. Then also with Thomas Dudley, who was more conservative, even more conservative than Winthrop, and left Cambridge to found the state of Connecticut. And then there was Roger Williams, the minister in Salem, who had strong views about the separation of church and state, views so strong that he was expelled from Mass Bay and went on and out to found the colony of Rhode Island. The other group that Winthrop had a problem with were the various tribes of indigenous people. The Native Americans whose land Winthrop and the other English had taken. I will spare you the sorrowful tales of violence that was committed in the name of Christianity. But you should know that John Winthrop was very good at manipulating the various tribes, the Mohegan, the Pequot, the Narragansett. He was very good at manipulating them to both try to support him and to turn against each other. The losers in those battles being either killed or sold into slavery down in the Caribbean. That's the first story. The second story happened this past Monday. I drove down to Fairhaven, down to visit my parents, do some work in their yard. And while I was there, I got to see my sister Cora. She lives nearby in New Bedford, but it was the first time that we had had a chance to see each other since Christmas. It was good. We chatted about the situation of the world, how her kids are, how mine are. She told me that she had been doing some work as a field evaluator for the Narragansett tribe in Rhode Island. Her job, you see, is to head out with surveyors working with the Army Corps of Engineers or someone who wants to build a road or put in a solar farm on undeveloped land. She heads out with these surveyors and she points out the site and she points out places that might have historical or religious significance to the Narragansett. And of course, as my sister is telling me this, all I could think of is John Winthrop and the way he used the Narragansett to almost eliminate the Pequot. The third story. The third story happened the very next day. I was coming to church, and usually for the last 4 months when I show up on Tuesday mornings, there's nobody here. But this Tuesday I showed up, and who did I find sitting in her car in the church parking lot? But Katie McCaig Lucas, our new intern, our new student minister. She was here to drop off some paperwork, as one does before they start a new job. So we got a chance to chat and catch up. And soon our discussion turned to First Church in Boston, the church that Katie has belonged to now for a number of years, a church that has supported her call to ministry. Now, I don't want to share too much about First Church, but they are having a bit of a statue problem. If you've ever been to First Church, it's there on the corner of Berkeley and Marlborough Streets in the Back Bay. And if you have ever been there, you would see a very large statue of none other than John Winthrop himself there in the front courtyard of the church. Now, in a church that has been around for almost as long as that church has been, I'm sure that there are worse people who have belonged to that church. But those people don't have a large statue of themselves outside the front door of the building. And in this day and age, when we are all much more aware of statues and public places, well, church folks are talking. Now, the reason why I share these three stories is because I want you to understand that history is alive. The person of John Winthrop is still alive because the actions he took still have an impact in the lives that we and other people live today. In 24 hours, I had not one, but 2 interactions with him. Maybe 3 if we include the debate that's going on Beacon Hill about changing our state flag. You know, the state flag we have, the image of the native person on it. It's a stylized version of the original, which had the same native person, but this one had the original one had a little voice bubble coming out of its mouth that said, "Come over and help us." history is alive when we realize that the story of John Winthrop and his city on a hill occurred 11 years after the arrival of the White Lion, the ship which traded in African slaves. Slavery was already happening here in North America when John Winthrop said to his fellow Puritans that they should rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together. History and its impact is relevant and real. This coming week in the education program that we've created for you, you know which one I'm talking about, right? The one that shows up each week in our newsletter. It's a 7-week program of anti-racism education, right? Each week you're asked to listen to a podcast, watch a video, read an article, pray, ponder a question, and to take action. This week's action was to inquire if the police in your community where you live, use body cameras. The week before, the action was to make a public statement about Black Lives Matter with a sign or a pin or just talking to friends. Yeah, that program. That's the program I'm talking about. This coming week, you're going to have the opportunity to listen to podcasts from the 1619 Project from the New York Times. Do you know about that project? This program is not just a deep dive exploring what happened 401 years ago when those 20 plus enslaved Africans appeared on these shores, but it is a way that the history of our nation has been shaped by its need to have an underclass to do our work. It tells the history through the lives of real people, the way that slavery has affected every aspect of our nation, from its economy, to its music, to its medicine, to even our ideals of what democracy and freedom is. And as you listen to those podcasts or go and read the project, I want you to realize something as you're doing so. I want you to realize that these stories are not seasoning for the main dish. These are not stories about a person of color who did one little thing which added to the greater story of white America, that history that we've all been taught. These are new stories which turn our understanding of history on its head. These are stories where the Black experience is central, where whiteness is decentered. The story of systemic racism is deep and wide, and it is intertwined in every part of our lives, even in parts that we can't even think of. You know, for more than a decade, we Unitarian Universalists have been exploring how and where and why racism has shaped our faith. Certainly, there were abolitionists who filled our pulpits and filled our pews, who risked their lives and their fortunes to end slavery. There were those who marched with Dr. King, who lost their lives. But there are many stories where we have come up short. Stories of discrimination and segregation, of looking the other way when saying something could have made a difference. There is a history that is alive, that shows us our Unitarian, our Universalist history, and our Unitarian Universalist history in a dim light. And I wonder at times how that cowardliness has shaped our theology. How has our understanding of the divine, the sacred, been shaped by racism? You know, we don't have that many white Jesuses hanging around our churches. That would be too easy. We Unitarian Universalists tend not to do things easily, do we? But I wonder, we'll be exploring together if we've fallen for tropes of other people's religions or of others' otherness because it seemed exotic, because it was easy. This program that we've set up for the church, this is just the start. It's a chance, though, for us, and I say us, assuming that most of you who are watching this service are white, come from a white community, have benefited from a system that upholds whiteness. This is a chance for us to relearn, a chance to learn a new history, a chance to have a look at the history, our history, and see that we aren't the stars of that story. We aren't necessarily always the villains either, but we're there. It's a new history for all of us. A new history, a fresh understanding. And that, my friends, looks like hope to me. Let me end with a poem by the Unitarian Universalist theologian Dandayaka. Despair is my private pain, born from what I failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. Let me rise to you. Let me reach down into your pain and soothe you. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestries, broken firms, crack dealers, private estates, personal things in the bag lady's cart, rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own inner worlds. This common world I love anew, as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity. In an inhuman world courses through my veins. From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope, and I begin anew the legacy of caring.
While our physical church campus is closed, our expense ledger is not. In addition, each month, as we strive to heal the world, we designate a worthy nonprofit with which to share our plate, our weekly offering, 50-50. Our July Share the Plate recipient is Bread and Roses, a Lawrence-based soup kitchen and food pantry founded 40 years ago, who we've supported since 2012 by cooking and serving meals, by sorting donations, and so much more. Due to COVID-19, safely serving communal meals is not possible, so Bread and Roses now utilizes its 2 dedicated outreach vans to deliver bulk food and meals to churches and agencies serving the most vulnerable in Lawrence. I invite you to give generously to our virtual Sunday Share the Plate offering to support both the mission of UUCR and that of Bread and Roses. You may do so at any time during or after the service by using your bank's bill pay feature or by going to our church website at uuredding.org and clicking the donate link.
Friends, let me tell you a little bit of a few things that are coming up in our church life. Most of the information you can get by going to our church website, or you will look, if you look in your email browser, you will find it, that the newsletter has been sent to you, and there's lots of information there. First is I want to tell you that a number of our folks, a number of us who went and attended General Assembly are organizing a program called UU the Vote to help us support democracy in our nation. You are going to hear more about UU the Vote in the coming weeks and months. The second thing I want to tell you is something fun. Next Saturday evening, the 25th at 7 o'clock, we are going to have an all-church coffee house. There will be a link emailed out to you, and Rold is going to be the MC. You can sign up and sing a song, a poem, some little thing that you have been practicing and waiting to share with all of us. Well, this is the time, next Saturday night, the 25th at 7 o'clock. More information will be coming out in the next couple of days, but I want to make sure that you see that and know that is coming next Saturday night. All right, now we're going to close with our final hymn, number 151, I Wish I Knew How. A wonderful hymn, best known by Nina Simone's version, which became an anthem for the civil rights movement. I wish I knew how. Friends, will you join me in repeating the words we say each week as we extinguish our chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts. Our closing words come from Nelson Mandela, who wrote, "The time for healing of the wounds has come. The time to build is upon us. We pledge ourselves to liberate all people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discriminations. There is no easy road to freedom. None of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world." Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go in peace.